This is the DaVinci Pro. It's an HD OCR device, primarily used as a desktop model for magnification and for converting paper text into electronic text. You can view it on the screen. You can get media in different ways into this device, which we'll talk about in a moment, through flash drives. As you see right now, you've got controls on the surface of the device. Explained here. This is the magnification here in the middle. Turning it to your right, you get more magnification. Left, you have less. This is for color contrast. If you use those controls, you get 6 basic color contrast combinations, and you have more with the console down here. You'll notice that it has many buttons on the bottom. There's actually a cover that goes on there, and then you're able to use the upper part of the console. There's a button there to your left, right there, and that's for color contrast, or brightness rather, and this is for color contrast on the other side, and of course the round knob is for magnification. This here is your power button. A little bit of information on the top there. This is your adjustable camera, which you can move forward. You can also move the camera there. If you remove the lid right there, as you're turning it, that's for distance. You put the lid back on for looking down for near magnification. Here's some of the features of this device. Again, it comes in a 24 or 27-inch model. The camera can be used for self-viewing as far as looking at something, applying makeup or combing your hair, reading near point for materials under the camera, and then distance by flipping up and also taking that lens that's on there and popping that up. Magnification goes up to 77x. It's an adjustable camera. 24 different combinations, 28 rather, viewing modes for color, contrast, and brightness. Computer compatible. You can toggle between the video magnification on the screen there, and by going through the HDMI port in the back, you can attach an iPad with the appropriate adapter, and Chromebooks, which has, and Windows laptops have the built-in HDMI port, so you can connect that with the device and then see what's on the screen. We'll talk more about the controls on the console of how you can actually accomplish that. There's a 13 megapixel camera, which is pretty good. There's varied voices when you get into the controls in the menu as far as speech, sound, and some of the menu for file saving. You can save documents, pictures, books, and export files to your PC. Here's an example of something you would use with near point viewing with your console, again with it doesn't have the cover on there. So in many cases the kids would use just the controls on top to go ahead and magnify and adjust the color, contrast, and brightness. The other controls we'll talk about in a second. The viewing right now, if you push the center button here, it moves between a live mode and then goes to OCR, which that's in the mode that it's in right now. If something's highlighted in yellow, like you see right here, that means you're in the OCR mode. So if you're pushing that middle button once you'll go between the live mode into the OCR mode. To go ahead and actually take a picture of it, you push the button over here on the console, and that will go ahead and adjust that viewing screen, which is like the orientation screen, and it will take a picture of it and actually show the full text on the screen, in which you can use your magnification while it's talking, or you can stop the talking. This is what it looks like when you fold it up. The screen gets pushed in and it attaches. This camera can be adjusted to the side position over here, which makes it compact. The handle is right in here, so it's easy to pick up. Now in the back here you can see that you have 1 and 2 USB ports, a networking port, and you also have an HDMI port right here for connecting Chromebooks and iPads and things like that, so you can see it on your magnifier. The USB ports are used for media that you want to get into it, a flash drive, or if you're attaching another camera for some reason. So you do have some options as far as connectivity on these devices. Here's an example of the console with the cover on there. So here's what you'd be using for your magnification. Here's what you'd be using for color contrast, the 6 basic ones you could be using. And then here you have brightness. If you push down on this button here, after you've already pushed the button on the front of the machine, this will kick you into OCR, and then it will actually start taking a picture of the document and it'll start reading. So it will do the OCR when you push both buttons, the one on the machine and this one right here. Here's an example of the magnification on the front of the machine. Turning it to the right increases and going back decreases. The lowest magnification is a little lower than 2x. Here's an example of the magnification of a document that was flat on the screen, a textbook, and it does a pretty good job as far as retaining color. I know some glare on some things depending on how the DaVinci is aligned or how it's positioned. Here's an example of the console with the panel off. It's like we talked about a moment ago. This would be for brightness. This over here would be for the different color combinations, contrast combinations. There's your magnification right there. Now, because this device has so many buttons here, a combination of things allows you to do special things as far as getting into menus. For example, when you go ahead and hold this button down over here, you get into the file menu. So all the things that you've saved in the OCR mode on the machine, you can access by pushing that button for a couple seconds. If you do the OCR and you have a document and you hold this button down over here, it will go ahead and save it directly into your file repository on your machine. If you don't push this button on the left here, you'll do the OCR, but it won't save it to the machine. Here's an example of something that's gone through the OCR. So we've got the color contrast over here. So even though it's in it's live mode or not live mode, it's in the OCR, you can go ahead and adjust the color contrast and magnification. Now here's we have the example of the color contrast. Here you have an image from a children's book that after we pushed it, you have this color contrast yellow on black. If you push the button in the middle, it will take you from the live mode into the OCR mode. The yellow on here is more of an orientation thing, so we haven't finished the OCR yet. This is simply getting a chance to move the book to the right or left or up and down to get the right position. And then after you push the button on the machine there, you push the other button on the console for it to finish this process. Here's the example of pushing it on the console. It will go ahead and take a picture of it, and then it will start talking automatically. Now, one of the advantages of having the console or the panel off on the console is you can stop the speech right here, and then you can continue, or you can actually go fast forward. So you have more reading controls right here when you don't have the cover on. It's a magnetic cover, so it easily fits right in, and then you can take it off. What's being demonstrated right here, as we said a moment ago, where if you hold that button down after you've done the OCR and you've got it on the screen there, you can save the document to the file repository. Here's an example of after pushing that button on the lower left, you get this icon here that it is saving to that hard drive or file repository. And here when you push that button there, it goes ahead and gets you into the file repository menu where all your files are. Here's what it looks like. It goes to the pictures, which has everything in pictures here, and the ones that have been converted, the documents, are over here. So you'll be able to move back and forth by turning the wheel on the console on the very top. Turning it to the right allows you to go from left to right, and in the other direction from right to left. Now, when you go ahead and push the button on there, this completes the OCR feature we talked about. It also allows you to go ahead, if you're not in the OCR mode, it allows you to move between live mode and OCR mode from here too. Take a look at that. So you'll notice that the thumb is over here and the other finger is over here. When you push those concurrently, here's the menu. So to get to that menu, you can push a combination of buttons. Let's go back to into this menu right here. It has an introduction, has a video over here that explains more about the details of this device. This gives you a lot of user settings over here as far as speech, the different kinds of voices and everything. The product settings give you much of the same thing to help to explain like an online manual. The library has a lot of your, well, file repository things we saw a moment ago. And the factory settings, if for some reason you've made some adjustments on here and you want to adjust it back to factory defaults. Now to go between all these, you'd use the round button, the magnification wheel. You'd be using that to get around until eventually you're down here, and then you push the magnification button, push it down to get out. Here's an example of some of the menus that they all have the same thing as far as exit, and when you move the wheel, it goes from this top position to audio, display, time, and the OCR text recognition. And then you simply turn it the other way to return back to the exit. Here you have screen messages, brightness, the icons. This feature down here comes in handy when you're reading, and if you set this, if you engage it, by default it's off. If you go ahead and engage it, and you know it's engaged because when you get down there and you push the button, you'll see a black box down here. It'll be all filled in. So when you engage the line marker, there's a combination of buttons. There's a button on the side of your console, a little wheel on the side, and there's the magnification button where you can tap it, and all of a sudden you'll be getting some lines in combination that underline where you're reading, and you can make it bigger and smaller, those lines. Here's an example of the video. It's really a pretty detailed video that's in the introductions within this menu. And here you have many of the same things we saw a moment ago. When you get into the audio, you've got the volume, you've got the sounds, you've got voice. So it gives you a lot of controls as far as what the student's hearing, and you can go back here to escape. Here we see more detail as far as other menu items. We've got time, the alerts, the voice gender, and you can see these boxes over here. When it's filled like this, that means it's engaged. And of course then you go back, and when you go to exit, whatever you've done down here will be automatically saved. Here we have the file repository menu, and it has on the pictures, viewing documents, importing files. Now this is what you would use here when you want to get access to the material on one of those flash drives that you put in the USB port, or you can export some things that you've taken a picture of on this device. You can export it to the flash drive from this machine. So think of this machine not just as a magnifier, but also think of this as a machine that will convert things from paper text to electronic. And then you have all documents, which is really kind of safe. If you make a folder and put all your stuff in there, this really becomes easy as far as exporting everything at one time, like an entire children's book, and you want to get it into a thumb drive and give it back to the student. And here you have the different text formats when you're importing, which is kind of nice. You get access to PDFs, docs, and a variety of other formats, some of the ones that are more common. Now this will prompt you when you go through those menus to go ahead and insert in the USB drive. Now it says try again because we didn't put a flash drive in there, and that's why it says that. Now here's an example of those lines we talked about. So when you go ahead and hit a combination of there's controls on the side here of the console, which you don't use very often, but when you engage those lines in the menu and you use that along with this wheel, you can adjust where these lines are and, of course, how big they are. Here's an example of slight difference in the lines as far as size. You can see how it really kind of helps. Now we did two things on this document. One was the color contrast, and one we added these lines here so the student, when they're reading, they can move the material on the table, and these lines, of course, will stay in those positions. Only the material will move. All right. Now, we just wanted to give you a little bit of overview. If you have any more questions about this and you want to go ahead, feel free to email me at rtaylor@kssdb.org, or you can call my cell at 913-645-5357. I hope you've enjoyed this, and this has really been a good experience for me too.